The Strangler Fig. I mean, just the name alone, right? It sends a shiver down your spine. It makes you think of some kind of botanical monster, a silent, creeping terror in the rainforest. And, well, as we're about to find out, that reputation, it's not exactly unearned. Yeah, something from a horror movie. That quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling you get when you first hear about this plant. It's a story of survival, of ruthless competition, a life strategy so intense it almost feels personal. So the big question is this plant really a cold-blooded killer?
Okay, so what are we talking about here? Strangler fig isn't just one single plant. Nope, it's actually a common name for hundreds of species in the Ficus genus. You find them in tropical and subtropical forests all across the globe, and they all share this, well, this fantastically sinister way of surviving.
And this pretty much sums up its entire life story in one sentence. It's a crazy transformation, right? From this tiny, harmless little plant hanging out in the branches to a massive standalone tree that basically takes the place of its host. But, to really get how it ends, we've got to go back to the very, very beginning.
You'd think a plant with a name like Strangler Fig would have a super dramatic start, but that's not the case at all. Its origin is actually incredibly humble. You could even say it's almost accidental. It all starts with just one tiny little seed, completely at the mercy of the rainforest. It's all a game of chance, really. So picture this. A bird, or a bat, or maybe a monkey, is just having a snack, eating some ripe figs. Later on, it deposits the undigested seed, complete with its own little packet of fertilizer, right into a small, damp crack in the bark of some other tree. And just like that, high above the dark, competitive forest floor, a new life begins.
So, in its early days, the strangler fig is what we call an epiphyte. Basically, it's a plant that lives on another plant. It's just a tree dweller, using its host for one thing and one thing only: physical support, a place to get up high and catch some sun. It's not a parasite. It's not sucking nutrients out of the host's veins. Not yet, anyway. It's just patiently waiting, gathering its strength from the rain and whatever bits of decaying leaves it can find. And this is where things start to change. This quiet, patient beginning builds into the most infamous part of its life cycle. This is where the strangler fig earns its name, transforming from what seemed like a harmless hitchhiker into a relentless competitor, in what you can only really call a slow, fatal embrace. And what's just incredible here is the sheer ambition of this plant. It starts sending down these long, thin aerial roots that can travel hundreds of feet, literally hundreds of feet, to finally touch the ground. And once they connect with the soil, bam, the whole game changes. The fig now has a direct line to a constant source of water and nutrients, and it just begins to grow explosively. The term strangler is actually a little misleading. It doesn't literally choke its host to death, not like a boa constrictor wrapping around its prey. The reality is, well, it's almost more brutal. What happens is its roots start to thicken and fuse together, forming this lattice-like cage right around the host's trunk, which stops the host tree from getting any wider. At the exact same time, the fig's own leaves are spreading out way up top, stealing all the sunlight. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts, a slow, relentless process of just being completely outcompeted. But think about it. This whole strategy, starting your life in the harsh, exposed canopy and ending it down on the forest floor, that is incredibly risky. To pull it off, the strangler fig has evolved this fascinating arsenal of biological tricks. It's a whole set of adaptations that make it one of the rainforest's ultimate survivors. And this is the question that has really fascinated scientists. How does it manage this double life? That early stage as an epiphyte is extremely vulnerable. I mean, you're exposed to intense sun, you can go long periods without rain. How on earth does a tiny seedling survive those conditions long enough to send its roots all the way down to the soil? Well, it turns out the fig is an absolute master of managing its resources. First off, the strangler fig is incredibly efficient. To save energy, it actually prefers to use ammonium instead of nitrate, which is a more expensive form of nitrogen for a plant to process. Smart, right? Then, it develops these fleshy tubers in its roots that act like little canteens, storing up water and nutrients for the dry spells. In its leaves, they're waxy and have fewer of these little pores we call stomata, which dramatically cuts down on water loss. This is a plant that's built for a long, slow siege. This table really shows its incredible adaptability, a trait that scientists call plasticity. As a young epiphyte, its leaves are built for one thing: efficiency and saving water. But once it gets its roots into the ground, it completely changes its leaf structure to become a freestanding tree, designed for one thing: vigorous growth. It's like it has two totally different sets of blueprints for two different stages of its life. And get a load of this number: 80%. The specific leaf area, which is basically a measure of how much leaf surface you get for a certain weight, is a whopping 80% greater in those early epiphytic leaves. This makes them ridiculously good at capturing the limited, filtered light of the canopy, which is an absolutely critical advantage when it's young.
Here's another one of its really clever tricks. When water starts getting scarce, the fig doesn't just sit there and hope for rain. No way. It actively starts reallocating its resources, dramatically shifting more and more of its energy and biomass down into its roots. This pushes them to grow faster and find water. This is a plant that actively solves its own problems, which is just amazing.
Okay, so we've pretty much established the Strangler fig as a ruthless competitor, a killer even. But here comes the final, fascinating twist in its story. After the host tree eventually dies and rots away, leaving behind this hollow, latticed trunk, the fig transforms. It goes from being a taker to one of the most important givers in the entire ecosystem. And because of this, scientists have a special name for it: a keystone species. Just think about the keystone in a stone arch. If you pull that one stone out, the whole arch collapses. That's the Strangler fig. Its presence literally holds the entire structure of the rainforest community together. If you were to take them all away, the whole system could be drastically, and I mean drastically, altered.
And this is where the fig's story totally flips on its head. It produces these massive crops of fruit all year round, which makes it a super reliable food source when other plants aren't fruiting. A huge range of animals. We're talking monkeys and birds up in the canopy, all the way down to wild pigs on the ground. They all rely on it to survive. And that hollow trunk left behind by the dead host, it becomes a vital shelter for bats, snakes, and just countless other small creatures. So it really makes you think, doesn't it? The Strangler fig just forces us to look beyond these simple labels of good and bad. Its whole life is this cycle of death and creation, of a competition that ultimately creates a community. It's a perfect, if, yeah, a pretty brutal, example of how in the incredibly complex web of the rainforest, the line between villain and hero is never, ever as clear as it seems.